October 12th, 2300 hours. The crime scene is clinically clean. The apartment of Amelia Vance, an investigative journalist, shows no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle. Forensics found nothing useful. No foreign prints, no fibers, no DNA. Nothing, except for the object placed with ceremonial precision on the victim's nightstand, its gold plating catching the sterile glare of the investigator's lights. It was an Oscar statuette, a perfect replica. At that moment, the city's most notorious cold case didn't just get reopened, it became active. The discovery of Sheila Pearson's remains inside an industrial centrifuge in 2013, a pristine Oscar placed beside her bones 22 years after her disappearance, created a media sensation and a ghost, the Oscar killer, a killer who was never caught. Now, that ghost was back. The signature was identical, a chilling declaration of intent. He wasn't just killing again, he was resuming a performance that had been interrupted decades ago. An emergency analysis of the original 1991 files revealed a terrifying pattern, a detail lost in the media frenzy of the initial discovery. 3 days after Sheila Pearson vanished from the Chemcorp plant, a night watchman from the same facility was killed in what was ruled a hit and run. We now know that was no accident. The killer's interval is exactly 72 hours. A new timeline snapped into place with brutal clarity. Amelia Vance had been dead for at least a day. The clock wasn't starting, it was already counting down. We have less than 48 hours to stop a phantom before he takes his final bow. The nightmare began in 2013, but its roots went back to 1991. The old Chemcorp industrial complex was a rust-eaten skeleton being dismantled for redevelopment. A demolition crew was slicing apart a decommissioned G-Force 5000 centrifugal separator when their torch breached the main drum. Inside, amidst corroded steel, lay the bones of Sheila Pearson, a process engineer who had vanished from that very plant 22 years earlier. Cuddled against her skeleton, gleaming and absurd, was a gold-plated Oscar. The image was a media firestorm. A national obsession was born. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit was brought in. Their profile, compiled in 2013, painted a picture of a highly intelligent, pathologically narcissistic offender. They called him the Oscar killer, theorizing he was a frustrated artist or actor, someone who used the statuette as a symbol for a life of fame he could never achieve. The crime was seen as a performance piece. The victim was a prop. The stage was a forgotten industrial coffin. He was meticulous, patient, and completely without empathy. The investigation consumed thousands of man-hours. Detectives chased down every lead connected to Hollywood memorabilia, amateur film clubs, and local theaters. They cross-referenced every disappearance where a symbolic trophy was left behind. It was a massive, nationwide wild goose chase that led nowhere. The killer had executed a perfect crime and then, inexplicably, vanished. He hadn't, though. Our new analysis confirmed the death of a Chemcorp security guard 3 days after Pearson disappeared was no hit and run. It was the second act. 2 victims, 72 hours apart, and then silence. For over a decade, nothing. The biggest question in the case file was never who, but why. Why did he stop? The prevailing theories were mundane. He died, was imprisoned, or fled the country. But the murder of Amelia Vance has incinerated those assumptions. The Oscar killer didn't stop. He took an intermission. And for the last decade, he has been living among us, a ghost in plain sight, waiting for his cue to resume the performance. We have no idea what triggers him, which means we have no idea how to stop him. 0600 hours. The murder of Amelia Vance and the return of the Oscar statuette sent a shockwave through the department. Within hours, a major case task force was formed, commandeering the entire 4th floor of the regional command center. This wasn't a cold case anymore. It was a clear and present threat, and the brass was treating it like a ticking bomb. Federal partners from the Bureau were en route. The atmosphere was a mix of controlled panic and grim determination. Everyone knew the clock was running. Leading the investigation was Detective Garrett Nolan of the Cold Case Unit. Nolan was a relic, a man whose career was bookended by the same ghost. He was a rookie officer when Sheila Pearson disappeared in 1991, one of the uniforms tasked with the initial, fruitless search of the ChemCorp grounds. The case files were practically scripture to him. He knew every report, every dead end, every name. For Nolan, this wasn't just a case. It was a reckoning. His new partner was the antithesis of everything he represented. Dr. Anya Sharma was a civilian analyst, a criminal psychologist on loan from Quantico. She was under 30, with a mind that moved at the speed of a fiber optic cable. Where Nolan saw a personal failure, Sharma saw a data set. She walked into the command center with a laptop and 2 terabytes of analytical software designed to find patterns the human eye would miss. She wasn't haunted by the past. She was here to dissect it. The friction was immediate. Nolan stood before a corkboard covered in faded photographs and yellowed reports, trying to feel his way back into the killer's 1991 mindset. Sharma sat at a terminal, running victimology algorithms and cross-referencing digital footprints Amelia Vance had left in her last 48 hours of life. To him, the Oscar was a theatrical taunt. To her, it was a behavioral signifier with a quantifiable statistical probability. They were oil and water, gut instinct versus machine learning, an old ghost hunter paired with a data exorcist. But the killer wouldn't wait for them to find common ground. The countdown was under 36 hours. Their ability to merge 2 completely different eras of police work would be the only thing standing between the killer and his next victim. The battle had begun, not just against the clock, but within the task force itself. 0900 hours. The war room is a museum of failure. Dozens of bankers' boxes from the 2013 investigation line the walls, a paper testament to thousands of dead-end leads. Nolan directs the team to physically unbox every file, every evidence log, every interview transcript. The past must be dismantled piece by piece before it can be reassembled correctly. The air fills with the smell of aging paper and cold coffee. Every minute spent looking backward is a minute the killer is moving forward. Evidence from the 2013 discovery was recatalogued. Standard procedure. The Oscar statuette from the centrifuge was sent back to the lab, more for the sake of protocol than from any real expectation. But Dr. Sharma was insistent. Technology evolves. She requested a full-surface rescan with a high-powered electron microscope, a tool unavailable a decade ago. The initial hit was a statistical long shot. Underneath the base, nearly polished away by time and corrosion, the scan revealed a microscopic laser engraving. The inscription was faint but clear. FC, Best Performance, 1988. The initials immediately went into every database we had. Simultaneously, a team was dispatched to the city archives to search for business licenses of trophy and engraving shops active in the late 80s. They found one, a small family-owned store that had closed in 2001. Miraculously, the owner's widow had kept her husband's meticulous paper ledgers. An hour later, the call came in. An order from 1988, a custom engraving for a replica Oscar statuette. The name on the order, Freddie Collins. While Nolan's team began digging into this first tangible lead in a decade, Sharma focused on deconstructing the original FBI profile. The Oscar killer theory, she argued, was a catastrophic misreading of the evidence. The Bureau had focused on the Oscar, assuming a Hollywood obsession, a desire for public recognition. But Sharma saw it differently. It wasn't a real Oscar. It was a replica, a personal award. The signature wasn't a public statement. It was a private joke. "He's not performing for us," she stated in the briefing, her voice cutting through the room's low hum. "He's performing for himself. The statuette isn't about fame, it's about deception." Best performance refers to his ability to get away with it, to wear a mask. This single observation changed everything. It shifted the search from an unknown, fame-obsessed psychopath to someone intimately connected to the original crime scene. Someone who was playing a role. The old investigation looked for a monster in the shadows. Sharma's analysis told us to look for one hiding in plain sight. We weren't just searching for a killer anymore, we were searching for an actor. The clock was down to 29 hours, 1400 hours. The search for a connection begins. On the surface, the two victims were from different universes. Sheila Pearson, a meticulous process engineer from 1991. Amelia Vance, a relentless investigative journalist from the present day. One worked with chemical compounds, the other with classified sources. The original theory held that the link was symbolic, a type of victim that fit the killer's psychological fantasy. But Sharma's analysis demanded a tangible, logical connection. The team was tasked with rebuilding the last 6 months of Amelia Vance's life. The digital forensics unit breached the encryption on Vance's work laptop. The machine was a labyrinth of cold cases and forgotten scandals. They found the project folder that cost her her life. It was a book proposal, provisionally titled The Oscar Ghost. Vance had been reinvestigating the Sheila Pearson case, convinced the FBI's profile was wrong. She believed the killer wasn't an outsider, but an insider at ChemCorp. Her research was exhaustive. She had digitized the entire case file, created timelines, and conducted new interviews with over a dozen retired ChemCorp employees. Most of it was a rehash of old information. But then we found a subfolder, password protected. The password was best performance. Inside was her true investigation. Vance had zeroed in on the man the original detectives had cleared in a single perfunctory interview. Sheila Pearson's department head, Freddie Collins. Vance had profiled his rise from mid-level manager to beloved city philanthropist. She saw his charity work not as altruism, but as the construction of an unassailable public identity, a performance. She couldn't prove it, but she suspected the motive for Pearson's murder was tied to something she had discovered at ChemCorp. In her notes, she identified another man, Robert Kincaid, an executive who signed off on Collins's departmental budgets. Kincaid had resigned abruptly 1 month after Pearson's disappearance, taking a massive severance package. Vance's final note read, "Kincaid knows." Was he an accomplice or a blackmailer? Find him. The hypothesis snapped into focus. The killer wasn't choosing victims based on a type. He was eliminating loose ends. Sheila Pearson knew something. Decades later, Amelia Vance got too close to the same truth. Now, our killer believes Robert Kincaid is a threat. He isn't following a 72-hour ritual. He's cleaning house on a schedule, and Robert Kincaid is next on his list. The countdown is at 19 hours, 1600 hours. The identification of Robert Kincaid becomes the new center of gravity for the entire investigation. But the theory splits. Sharma is convinced he is the next intended victim. Nolan, however, sees a different possibility, a darker narrative. What if Kincaid wasn't just a witness? What if he was Collins's partner in the embezzlement and the original murder? Perhaps Collins is long dead, and Kincaid is the one who has now silenced Amelia Vance to protect their shared secret. The theory is plausible. It's tight. It fits the profile of a man methodically erasing the past. The decision is made to treat Kincaid as the primary suspect. The manhunt begins. All resources are diverted to finding a man who hasn't existed officially for over 20 years. He's a digital ghost. No credit cards, no social security activity, no modern footprint. Teams dive into old property records and bank archives, chasing financial breadcrumbs that are decades cold. The clock is a sledgehammer. Every minute spent searching for Kincaid is a minute Freddie Collins, if he is indeed the killer, can use to find him first. We are in a race, but we no longer know who we are racing against. After hours of fruitless searching, a single hit. An analyst cross-referencing tax records finds a property in rural Oregon, purchased for cash in 1992. The property taxes have been paid every year since, always with a money order mailed from a different post office. It's the only lead we have. Nolan gets a no-knock warrant authorized, and a local SWAT team is mobilized. The entire command center watches on a satellite feed, 100 people holding their breath as the tactical unit surrounds a small, isolated cabin in the pre-dawn darkness. The theory collapses not with a bang, but with a whimper. With just under 6 hours left on the clock, the team breaches the door. They find Robert Kincaid, a frail, terrified man in his late 70s, surrounded by stacks of newspapers chronicling the life of Freddie Collins. He surrenders without a word. In the subsequent interrogation, the truth comes out. He wasn't an accomplice. He was a hostage to a secret. Collins had paid him a fortune to sign off on the falsified budgets, and then, after murdering Sheila Pearson, threatened to kill Kincaid's family if he ever spoke a word. He spent 22 years in self-imposed exile, living in constant fear. He wasn't the Oscar killer. He was its first victim, one who had simply been allowed to live. The command center falls silent. We had just thrown the full weight of the investigation into hunting down a terrified old man. 16 precious hours had been vaporized, chasing a perfect, logical, and catastrophically wrong theory. The clock now reads 5 hours until the deadline, 100 hours, 4 hours left on the clock. The failure with Robert Kincaid was total. The command center is a tomb of stale air and dead screens. The energy has evaporated, replaced by the grim acceptance of defeat. We have no leads, no theories, and no time. Freddie Collins, the philanthropist, the man we now know is the killer, is an untouchable ghost. We can't prove he was even in the same state as Amelia Vance when she died. The investigation has hit a brick wall at terminal velocity. Nolan stands alone in front of the corkboard, staring at the faded photo of Sheila Pearson, a silent apology in his eyes. Sharma sits at her terminal, the glow of the monitor illuminating her face, stripped of its usual confidence. The data has failed. Human instinct has failed. They meet in the middle of the room, two exhausted soldiers in a lost battle. They discard everything, the profiles, the algorithms, the timelines. They go back to the beginning. 1991, the ChemCorp Pass and ID office. He couldn't have done it alone, Nolan says, the words more an incantation than a statement. That section of the plant was decommissioned. To get her there, past the checkpoints, he needed help. His eyes fix on a name on an old duty roster. Mark Bishop, the security guard on duty that afternoon. Nolan remembers the original interview. Bishop was nervous, sweating, but attributed it to the shock of the disappearance. It was dismissed as insignificant. Sharma's eyes light up. The camera log, she says, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She pulls up the original security report from that day. The camera in the back corridor leading to the decommissioned wing was reported as malfunctioning, a 1-hour gap in the recording. She cross-references the report with Amelia Vance's recovered notes. A chill runs through the room. Vance's last scheduled interview, one she never got to file her notes on, was with a retired security guard named Mark Bishop. That's it. That's the key. Bishop wasn't just a guard, he was the gatekeeper. He was paid to look away, to create the blind spot Collins needed. For decades he was safe. But when Amelia Vance called him, Collins must have found out. Bishop became the final loose thread. He isn't the killer. He's the next victim. A frantic search for a current address is launched. An officer shouts it out, a small retirement apartment across town. The 72-hour window since the guard's murder in 1991 is about to close. The clock on the main screen shows 90 minutes remaining. We're moving. Now. 0300 hours, 80 minutes left. The command center explodes into controlled chaos. Nolan and Sharma are in the lead vehicle of a 3-car convoy, sirens silent, slicing through the empty pre-dawn streets of St. Louis. Every red light is an eternity. Every turn is a calculation of seconds saved versus risks taken. The chatter on the radio is clipped, professional, a thin veneer over the raw tension gripping every officer in the convoy. The target is Mark Bishop. The objective is interception. The feed from a police drone appears on the vehicle's tactical display. We see the apartment building, a drab 6-story block of brick. There's no sign of activity. A single light is on in a 5th-floor window, Bishop's apartment. But there is another vehicle in the otherwise empty parking lot, a late-model sedan registered to a charitable foundation. Freddie Collins's foundation. He's already there. The tactical team is ordered to hold to establish a silent perimeter. Nolan makes the call. A quiet approach. No sirens, no bullhorns. They can't risk spooking Collins. A forced entry could turn a rescue into a hostage situation. As the convoy glides to a stop a block away, the drone feed shows a shadow moving behind the curtain of Bishop's window. Then, the light goes out. Silence. Nolan and 2 tactical officers take the stairs, their footsteps muffled on the worn carpet. Every creak of the old building is amplified in the suffocating quiet. They reach the 5th floor. The hallway is dimly lit, smelling of dust and old memories. The door to apartment 5B is slightly ajar, a dark sliver in the gloom. Nolan pushes it open. The scene inside is a tableau of frozen terror. An elderly man, Mark Bishop, is slumped in a recliner, his eyes wide with a fear that has been brewing for 22 years. Standing over him, back to the door, is another old man, his silhouette framed by the faint city lights filtering through the window. He turns slowly, his movements calm, almost theatrical. It's Freddie Collins. In his gloved hand, he isn't holding a weapon. He's holding a gold-plated Oscar statuette, raised as if to strike. He sees the officers, and a slow, serene smile spreads across his face. The performance is over. Freddie Collins. The name landed like a bomb in the city's consciousness. The beloved philanthropist, the man whose name adorned hospital wings and university libraries, was the Oscar killer. The image of his arrest, a stooped 70-year-old man in handcuffs, his face a mask of calm indignation, played on a continuous loop on national news. He was the monster who had been hiding in the brightest of spotlights, a ghost who had haunted the city for over 2 decades from a penthouse suite. The confession was not a breakdown, it was a monologue. In the interrogation room, confronted with Mark Bishop's testimony, Collins underwent a complete narcissistic collapse. The mask of the benevolent philanthropist disintegrated, revealing the cold, proud predator beneath. He spoke of Sheila Pearson not with remorse, but with annoyance. In 1991, his meticulous embezzlement scheme was siphoning millions from ChemCorp. Pearson, in a routine efficiency audit, mistook the financial black hole for a system error. She scheduled a meeting to show her boss, Freddie Collins, the anomaly, unknowingly signing her own death warrant. His methodology was chillingly simple. He told Pearson he needed to show her the fault in person at the specific machine she had flagged, the G-Force 5000 separator in the decommissioned wing. He paid Mark Bishop $5,000 in cash to report a camera malfunction and to turn his back for 10 minutes. He led her into the silent, dusty sector, and when she turned to look at the machine's control panel, he bludgeoned her from behind. He placed her body inside the drum, and as a final cruel act of self-adulation, he tossed in his Amateur Film Award from 1988. It was a tribute to his own best performance in the role of a concerned boss. The central mystery of the old case, why he stopped, was finally solved. Freddie Collins was never a serial killer in the traditional sense. He didn't have a compulsion or a ritual. He was a pragmatist. Sheila Pearson was a threat to his freedom and fortune. The night watchman who was killed 72 hours later was a potential witness who saw Collins near the decommissioned wing. Once those 2 problems were solved, he had no reason to kill again. He simply went on with his life. There was no intermission. The show in 1991 had ended perfectly. He only reprised his role when a new threat emerged 22 years later. An investigative journalist named Amelia Vance, who got too close to the truth. Her murder and the attempted murder of Mark Bishop were not a return. They were a new, final act designed to protect the legacy of his greatest performance. The case of the Oscar killer concluded not in a dramatic courtroom showdown, but in the sterile silence of a prison infirmary. Freddie Collins never stood trial. His heart gave out while he awaited his first hearing, denying him the final public performance he craved. Mark Bishop, the gatekeeper of the secret, provided a full confession and was placed in witness protection, a man finally unburdened of a guilt that had consumed his life. For Detective Garrett Nolan, the ghost that had haunted his entire career was finally laid to rest. He submitted his retirement papers a week after the arrest. The circle closed. The Oscar statuette, the object that launched a national myth, now sits in a climate-controlled evidence locker. Stripped of its mystique, it's just a piece of gold-plated metal, a cheap replica from a long-closed trophy shop. It was never a tribute to Hollywood. It was a monument to a narcissist's private joke. Best performance wasn't about a fantasy of being a star. It was about the reality of being a monster disguised as a philanthropist, a role Collins played flawlessly for over 2 decades. The site of the old Chemcorp plant is now a gleaming commercial park. There is no memorial, no plaque, nothing to indicate the truth that was unearthed from its foundations. The story of Freddie Collins serves as a chilling testament to a simple fact. Evil doesn't require a mask of monstrosity. Sometimes, its most effective camouflage is a veneer of respectability, of charity, and public adoration. We search for monsters in the darkness, but often they are standing right beside us in the light, their applause the only sound we hear.